Okay, let's just dive right into it. Today, we're exploring a highly unconventional, yet honestly incredibly practical psychological blueprint designed specifically to help you conquer academic burnout. Because let's be real, if you have ever stared at a massive mountain of coursework at 2 a.m., running purely on sheer anxiety and still coffee, and felt entirely paralyzed by the volume of it all, this is absolutely going to shift your entire perspective. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're asking a pretty fundamental question. How do you actually conquer overwhelming academic chaos? And the answer we're exploring is fascinating. We are taking the striking, ancient iconography of the Hindu goddess Kali and mapping it directly onto your modern study habits. We're literally taking profound spiritual symbolism and turning it into a highly actionable toolkit you can use today. To pull this off, we are going to take an anatomical tour of this mythological archetype and systematically decode her visual elements. We'll be covering 5 core areas: confronting academic chaos, stripping away distractions, mastering time and action, slaying the academic ego, and finally, the cremation of anxiety. All right, Section 1, confronting academic chaos, decoding the myth. Moving right into Section 2, stripping away distractions, specifically focusing on the naked form and the 3 eyes. So in spiritual traditions, Kali's naked form represents absolute transparency. It's the total stripping away of social armor. And her wild, untamed hair, that represents pure, unbound psychic energy. So how do you actually apply this? Well, you treat your study space exactly like her naked form by ruthlessly stripping away both physical and digital clutter. Clear that desk off, close those 20 unrelated browser tabs you've been hoarding, and just completely remove the friction. Then, when you're drafting an essay or trying to crack a really complex problem, channel that wild hair state. Brainstorm and mind map freely, with absolutely no immediate self-judgment or restriction. Next, look at how Kali is depicted with 3 eyes. Usually, the right and left eyes represent our ordinary dualities, logic versus emotion. But that third eye, that represents metacognition. For you, this means looking at your syllabus through a truly 3-dimensional cognitive lens. Use your logical eye for the hard facts. Use your emotional eye to find a creative narrative so you actually care about the topic. And crucially, use your third eye to step back and evaluate if your study methods are actually working or if you're just spinning your wheels. Now notice the crescent moon resting right on her head. This beautifully symbolizes the soothing, cooling nectar of mental peace thriving right in the middle of absolute outer chaos. When deadlines are looming and you feel that familiar panic rising in your chest, tap into this crescent moon. Take deep, intentional breaths to just cool your nervous system down. The ultimate goal here is to study from a place of icy, calm focus rather than hot, frantic anxiety. Section 3, mastering time and action. Let's look at her 4 hands and Lord Shiva. Kali is classically depicted with 4 hands, which represents mastery over multiple cosmic forces simultaneously. As a student, you can mirror this exact mastery by dividing your daily schedule into a 4-quadrant time management matrix. Sort your tasks out: urgent priorities, long-term assignments, difficult reviews, and, this is super important, guilt-free rest. You don't fight the chaos, you manage it by compartmentalizing it. Now, in our upper left hand, she holds a really sharp cleaver. This represents fierce intellectual discernment that you use to slash through delusions. When you sit down for a deep focus block, you need to wield this internal cleaver. Use it to ruthlessly hack away at incoming notifications and that urge we all have to multitask. Then, apply that exact same sharp discernment to slice straight through dense academic text, extracting only the core concepts that actually matter. This brings us to one of the most striking images in the entire mythology: Kali stepping on Lord Shiva. To really get this, we have to decode a profound ancient philosophical concept. Shiva represents Purusha, the passive, unmoving conscious witness. Kali, on the other hand, represents Prakriti, the dynamic, active cosmic energy. The philosophy here is a game changer. Action without awareness is just destructive chaos, but without action is merely paralyzed potential. You need the perfect equilibrium of both. So what this ancient image actually provides is the definitive blueprint for the Pomodoro technique. Think about it. Let the Kali phase be your intense, highly energized 45-minute blocks of deep, uninterrupted studying, pure dynamic action. But you must immediately follow this by stepping into the Shiva phase for a 15-minute break. This means a silent, totally restful state. Close your eyes, relax your mind, and completely avoid screens. Give your brain the quiet space it requires to actually consolidate the memories you just formed. Section 4. Slaying the Academic Ego. The Severed Head and the Garland of Skulls. Okay, this imagery gets a bit intense. The severed head she's holding symbolizes the decapitation of pride and rigid identity. As a learner, you literally have to decapitate your academic ego so you can embrace a beginner's mind. Drop that pride that stops you from asking a quote-unquote dumb question in class. Furthermore, look at her protruding red tongue clamped firmly by her white teeth. This represents sattva, purity and order, actively controlling the wild, chaotic urges of rajas, which is impulse. Use the teeth of a strictly structured daily schedule to clamp right down on the frantic tongue of instant gratification and procrastination. And around her neck is the Munda Mala, a literal garland of 50 skulls. In spiritual texts, these represent the 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, signifying mastery over language and basic labels. For us, it's a vivid, if slightly gruesome, reminder to systematically master your foundational building blocks before you even attempt to tackle complex theories. Honor the garland of skulls by locking down the core vocabulary, basic formulas, and essential definitions first. Finally, Section 5, the cremation of anxiety. We'll look at the severed hands and the cremation ground. Kali wears a girdle made entirely of severed hands. Now, hands are our primary organs of action, known as karmendriyas. Wearing them severed like this represents completely relinquishing the illusion of control. When it comes to exam anxiety, you have to cut away your obsessive worry over the final grade. That outcome is out of your immediate control anyway. Instead, focus entirely on the page, the problem, or the sentence right in front of you. Focus purely on the process. Kali is said to dwell in the shamashana, the cremation ground. But I don't want you to think of this as a physical place. Think of it as a psychological graveyard. This is where your ego's obsolete habits, defense mechanisms, and old dogmas are burned to ash. When you encounter a deeply frustrating study session, don't panic. Reframe that discomfort. You are in the cognitive cremation ground right now. Your old, limited assumptions are burning away to make room for much deeper learning. Wandering around that cremation ground is the howling jackal, the fearless scavenger that unearths what is hidden. Look, when a test paper comes back covered in red ink, human nature tells us to shove it in a backpack and just hide it away in shame. Don't do that. Adopt the fearless investigative intellect of the jackal. Dig straight into your mistakes, analyze exactly why you lost those marks, and thoroughly digest those errors so that you never, ever repeat them. We've just mapped a fierce, ancient archetype directly onto the everyday struggles of modern learning. It's an incredibly powerful myth-to-method transformation. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Looking at your own study routines, what parts of your academic ego and what obsolete habits are you going to throw onto the cremation ground today so you can truly master your focus? Think about it.